What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Acura Audio Garage. In today's video, we continue the DIY Pro series. We're going to be upgrading all of these speakers in our 2002 Acura TL. You can see we have some speaker options here. If this is the first video in the series you are watching, then I recommend checking out the other videos in the series and also checking out the perks available when you join our YouTube channel. The point of the DIY Pro series is to get you the most amount of information in the least amount of time. So I'm going to try to cover some of the questions I know you probably will have right off the bat. So your Acura TL has 4-door speakers. They are all coaxial speakers. They all have an impedance of 4 ohms, and they're all mounted inside a baffle like this one. To get each speaker off, you will have to remove the door panel. Each speaker is removed with 3 screws, and then you'll find it in the factory location like this. Each speaker has the same triangular pattern as this one, and if you can't fit your new speaker inside this baffle, you will need to use either a spacer or cut the door to fit your new speaker. 5¼ inch speakers fit no problem into the door. You don't have to do any cutting. You can just mount it. Also, every Honda speaker uses a proprietary connector like you see here, so you will need a speaker harness or connector to replace your speaker. If you're looking for the part number for this Bose speaker, you can find it here. Now that we covered the basics of your speaker replacement, I'm going to talk about the speaker choices we have here on the table and what you want to determine before you purchase a speaker. If you already purchased a speaker, then I recommend just jumping to the disassembly. We're going to remove all 4-door speakers. We're going to show you how to mount it with the baffle. So what kind of speaker can fit in here, we'll show you that. We're also going to show you how to use our spacer, and then we're going to be cutting the door to fit our larger speaker. So stay tuned. So if you're looking for that information, feel free to skip forward. If you're trying to decide what speakers to buy, so you are not sure what speakers to buy, make sure you watch the next 3 to 5 minutes. It's going to give you a lot of information that you need to think about when deciding for your speaker. All right, guys, if you already bought speakers, then I recommend skipping over these next few minutes so you don't feel bad about what you bought. If you have not bought speakers yet, then let's talk about what kind of speakers you should buy. There are 4 key specifications you should look at when choosing speakers, and those are going to be power handling, frequency response, impedance, and overall speaker dimension. You can see sensitivity is also a specification that is important, and speaker composition is also important, but those tend to apply a lot more when you're looking at high-end speakers. When we're looking at entry-level speakers like this, they're all going to be of similar material for the cone and the tweeter, so that really doesn't apply. Sensitivity will apply if you're going to use an amp or you're trying to get really loud, but what we're doing here is we're installing these speakers onto an aftermarket radio. We're not building a crazy system, so those are the specifications we're going to look at: power handling, impedance, frequency response, and overall dimension. This video originally started as one video. I'm going to split it into 2. One is going to cover the speakers and the installation. The other one's going to cover speaker selection, and there's like a 10-minute explanation on how to choose speakers, so that's going to be a separate video to shrink this video down. As always, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, join the channel. Thanks for watching. I'm sure you also saw on the table the factory sub. You might have some questions. So here's the factory sub, factory amp. This is our next video. We're not going to cover that in this video, but make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned. We have some subwoofer options here that we're going to try, so make sure you stay tuned for that video. I just wanted to show it to you, let you know it's in the works. Just a quick size comparison for you guys. So here we have a 5¼ inch speaker, and a lot of sites say that Acuras or Hondas use these, and that's, I guess, true. They can fit where the natural speaker mounts, so you can see some of the points will line up with the others to help you mount it, but they're not 5¼ speakers. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger. Here's a 6½, and you can see the surround for the Honda and this are almost similar, but the overall shape is right around there. So I like to refer them as 6½, but people often say they're 5¼ It's really up to you to decide. You can see that in the same size, but more towards 6½, for me, but it might be more towards 5¼ for you. But I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the size. Now that we covered the most important specifications, again, we didn't really talk about sensitivity or speaker composition, but those are important. If you need more information on that, feel free to leave a comment. We'll try to make another video to explain it to you. Let's jump into the actual work and speaker replacement. So we're going to be taking off This door panel, replacing this speaker. We're gonna sound it in the door and show you different mounting options. Then we're gonna move to the back, then we'll move to the driver's back, and then we'll do the driver's door last. So to get this off, there's a little cover here. So this little cover, you're gonna pry this off. Hopefully yours won't break. I think this one was already broken, but this cover should come off to the side like this, and it's not gonna come all the way out. It's just gonna expose the screw. If what happened to me just now happens to you, this can fit back in place, but normally this does not come off. So you have this screw, then you have another screw right in here. It's hard to see, but it's right in there. So I'm actually gonna start with that screw so I can show you what it looks like. This screw should come right out. If it gets stuck in there, don't worry about it. Just make sure it's all the way out. And then we're gonna take off this screw. Then here is the most important part. If you've taken door panels off before, you know that you can kind of just pull the door panel off. With this TL, you're gonna slide forward this, so this way. Slid that way, then this will come forward. What you're unhooking, if you come over the top, are these three hooks. These three hooks hook into the door panel, so you need to remove those first to get them out. And then you have a clip here. You're just gonna take your finger and push it back, or you can use whatever tool you use to remove the cover to just push it back to release it, like so, and then you can lift it up and out. There's also a connector here for the lock mechanism, but as you can see, ours wasn't connected. With that off, now you can pull on the door panel. You want to start by prying at the bottom. You have two more connections you need to disconnect, but I'll show you those when I get there. Here's the screw that was in the door, that was in this location. When I pried, it came flying forward. I just wanted to show it to you. So now, I'm gonna keep prying. And then you can see the door panel has fully come off. Now I'm just gonna lift up and out. You might have to remove this cover. It's up to you. As you saw, I was able to just slide it out, but if you want, you can remove this cover to make the removal of this panel easier. Two more things you have to disconnect. It's this clip right here. It has a push tab at the top. You're gonna push this down, pull it out, and then you have your courtesy lights right here. It's just a twisting mechanism that releases it. So it's in the panel like this. You twist, you're able to remove it. I like to just tuck it right there. And then that's everything for your door panel. You want to make sure all your clips came out and you didn't do any damage to your door panel when you were pulling it. And as you can see, here's our factory speaker. Our factory speaker is mounted with 3 screws. Well, this one's actually missing one, but it has 3 screws, one here, one here, and one here, and that's all that mounts it in the door. So I'm going to remove that. Then sometimes they're a little hard to come off, but this one just comes right off. They're a little sticky. Then you have your connector at the bottom. Just like any other Honda, Acura, you pinch the 2 sides together and you remove the speaker. So now that we have our speaker out, we're going to take some measurements for you of the door cavity. We're going to try some different speakers in there and let you know how everything fits. So our opening at the widest looks to be just about 4 inches wide. Tall, we have 4.5 inches tall. And then deep, the furthest you can fit if you don't want to put the window down, I want to say it's about 5 inches. But if you want to put your window down there, you only really have about 3 inches of depth. So those are your limitations for mounting a speaker. Again, you can cut the metal of the door to fit a bigger speaker. You can use the spacer we offer, or I'll show you a trick that you can use with the factory mount, but you're going to need a special speaker that fits in here. We're going to start with a 5.25 inch speaker. Remember our dimensions. This speaker is definitely fits in terms of depth, and then width and height are perfect. So you can see your 5.25 inch speaker fits pretty well. The lip of this speaker is not allowing it to kind of sit as flush as I would want it to. but with some force, some screws, you can definitely just fit this speaker in there, and I guess it'll work. I mean, you can definitely fit a bigger speaker, but if you're in a tight spot, you want to use 5 1/4, 4 good screws, and you're all set. If you don't want to make new holes, if you don't want to cut the door, you want to fit a 6 1/2, you're either going to need to use the factory bracket or the spacer we have available to make it fit. And only certain speakers work with this bracket, so be aware of that. So here, I'll show you what the 6 1/2 looks when you try to just jam it in the door. I've seen people do this. They just drill screws here and here. The problem with that is that these sometimes touch metal. So as long as you drill it, I guess, correctly, you don't have to worry about that. But this puts the speaker really in the door, and you have a gap here between the door panel and the speaker where you'll lose some volume and some bass response. But what I want to mention, what I want to show you now, is if you use the factory spacer slash baffle, you cut the lip off. So these had edges that stuck up. You then can, with the right speaker, so this JVC is one of the right speakers, it has these series of holes on the inside. So your 6 1/2s normally mount with these 4 ridges ears. This has these interior holes. If you line them up, you see one lines up there, you can usually get 2 or if not all 3 to line up. So right now I have all 3 lined up. Here, here, and here. And with that, I can use my normal screw, get it all the way in, and mount this speaker using the factory bracket to car. And it works very well, but it only works well with speakers that have these holes. So this JVC, if you're wondering what the model is, it's right here. It's 50 watts RMS. We don't sell these, but you can definitely find these anywhere. But since we're going to be using the Pioneers don't have those holes. Alright guys, so the speakers we're going to be using in the doors are going to be these Pioneer speakers. You can see they come with a bracket. I'm going to try to use that bracket, but if not, we always have our spacer to fall back to. So these are pretty easy to unbox. No seals, nothing. Open them up. Here you have your connectors and your hardware. Slide them down. We have some grills that we're not going to use. Here's the bracket I was talking about. We might be able to use this bracket. We'll try it out. But here's the speaker. So this is a 3-way speaker. I'm sorry, this is a 4-way speaker. Oh, yeah. This is a 4-way speaker, and this speaker and this other demo speaker we have don't have the same holes that that other speaker had. So like I showed you before, the JVC speaker fits in the bracket. The magnet is small enough where it clears it, and you can, by cutting those ears, line up these interior holes. These Hyphonic speakers we have just laying around as an example don't fit into the basket because of their bigger lips, so you can see it doesn't sit flush, and also the holes don't line up like they did with the other speaker. And the Pioneer speaker we're going to be installing, you see, is a little thicker than the JVC, and also doesn't fit correctly in our basket. So again, you can use this with certain speakers. This JVC is an example, but any other traditional 6 1/2, you're either going to need these. These Pioneer brackets are really nice. They fit a lot of cars. You might be able to get away with this, but if the clearance isn't enough because it's so much thinner than our bracket, then we'll have to use ours to mount it into the door. Alright guys, these are kind of cut to fit, so they have these little feet that we don't need. So I'm just cutting the little feet out. They also have a bunch of other places you can make cuts to make the adapter look better. You can see all the ridges and stuff around the edge, but just those two should allow us to come up with a place to mount it. They also have these interior holes that are not drilled out, so those might be some of the ones we use. I've been trying to line up the Pioneer adapter, and it looks like if we trim it all the way, we can kind of get it to fit against the metal because of its odd shape, but none of the holes fully line up. So I've been trying for a little bit now to try to see where I can get them lined up. As you can see, none of the holes fully line up, so this is out. So we're going to have to use one of our adapters. These you can find on our website, AcuraAudioGarage.com. And it has these 3 interior holes, which match with these 3 interior holes. It then has a slope to help accommodate a bigger speaker, bigger magnet, and then it has 4 mounting locations for the new speaker. Here's our Pioneer speaker. Once mounted, you can see that our 4 holes all line up. So I'm going to install this in the door, and then we'll get our speaker installed. So to mount this adapter, the 3 screws you took out, you're just going to work them in a little bit. You want them to peak a little on the back, so I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you want it to peak about that much. You just want to work each one in a little bit. This is best with a drill, but if you have to do it by hand, you can. But now that they're all peaking a little bit, I'm going to line them up with the holes in the door. It should be a tight fit, but they should all just kind of press on and fit. And then I'm going to start working each one a little bit at a time. So I'll screw this one in. I'll screw this one in. I'll screw my top one in a little bit. So I'm screwing them all in a little bit at a time until they're all fully flush and the adapter is right against the metal. So there goes one all the way. I'm going to do this one all the way. And then I'm going to do this one all the way. Okay. So now it's nice on there. It's not coming out. The advantage of using our spacer / adapter is that you don't have to drill any new holes. You use all the same screws that came with your car, and the speakers come with the proper screws to, the spacers come with the proper screws to then mount your speaker for installation. You also get a speaker harness that you can just connect to your new speaker and plug in to the door. Before we finish installing our speaker, I want to talk to you a little bit about sound deadening. So if you're going to be running a lot of power through your door, your speaker is going to be causing a lot of vibration. You might get some noise. This door panel is actually pretty sturdy, but you can see that in some parts it can definitely rattle because of how hollow it is. So I'm going to show you some treatment techniques to eliminate any rattle in the actual metal of the door panel and in the plastic of the door panel. So you have a couple different materials to apply for sound deadening. Something like this is what comes from the factory, like a door liner, help kill some sound. Then you have some materials that are actually applied to the metal to reduce vibration and noise. So here we have our regular service spell. Well, I'm not sure what these are called, but then you have one with material applied. So you can clearly hear the difference. This continues to vibrate and make noise. The material kills the vibration on that one right away and it makes no noise. So you have different materials available depending on what you're using. For your door panel, I recommend something like this black and gold or the silver. This is going straight on the metal. For the actual panel itself, you can use something like this STP crystal where it's a softer material, but it'll still stick really well. And it'll help sound deadening and eliminate any noise that you would hear from the speaker. Something else you can do to limit rattle or stop rattle altogether is to use foam on your speaker and on your spacer if you're using one. So you would apply your foam around the outside on the back side of the speaker like so. So I'm just measuring to see how much I need. And this foam is very thin and it has a sticky material on this side, so you can apply it like so. And this is on the mating surface between the spacer and the metal of the door. Just in case there are any imperfections in the metal or this doesn't meet exactly against the metal for some reason, this foam fills in those spaces and will eliminate any rattle and create a tighter seal for the air to move between the speaker and the door panel. So just like that, and then we're going to add some to the speaker as well. This foam you can find on Amazon. Any online retailer is really going to have traditional foam. You can also pick it up from Home Depot if you're in a tight spot. But it's up to you. Most speakers will come with it. These Pioneers did not. But the Infinities, the JBLs we showed you earlier, even the kickers, some come with it pre-applied on the actual speaker. Other ones come with very thin rolls given to you for you to apply. So We have it on our speaker now, we have it on our adapter, and now we're going to go mount both in the car. Apply some sound deadening material. If you really wanted to seal this door and sound deaden it to the best of your ability, so you get a real tight seal, good bass response from the door, you end up using the entire metal of the door as a chamber. You'd have to remove this plastic and fill this with either a wooden panel, which I wouldn't recommend, or some type of plastic panel. And they do sell them, especially for the trucks. We can seal this all off. We're not going to go that crazy. We're just going to apply some sound deadening material so that we don't lose any of the output from our speaker to the vibrations of the door, and also so that we don't get any rattle when we put everything back together. To apply sound deadening material, it usually comes with lines, and you just cut through it or on it. Once you do, you're able to tear it apart, and then you can unpeel it and begin applying it. You do want to make sure you're applying it to a clean surface. So this has some dust, so we're just going to clean that up before I apply this. Alright guys, it's best to apply these in the biggest patches that you can, and you want to make sure you don't cover any holes. If you do, you can cut the holes out, but I'm just going to come to right about here, and then I'm going to cut it. We're just going to go down the line. You want to peel this off. We then had a hole here we got to make sure we don't cover, so we're just cutting out the hole. And then we want to make sure we don't go past where the door panel sits, so you don't see this, so we're just going to cut that edge. And now that you have applied the material, you need to roll it. So it needs to make really good contact with the metal in order to stop vibrations. If you are going to build a large system, so if you're doing 100 watts RMS to the door, then you want to make sure that you apply a good amount of sound deadening. If you're doing a regular upgrade like we are, so we're just putting in this Pioneer speaker, we're using an aftermarket radio or the factory radio, you don't really need to go crazy with this stuff. Usually just foam on the speaker and the door is more than enough, but I wanted to show it to you anyways, so you have an idea of how to apply this stuff if you decide to use it for your build. So we offer, and you can kind of buy these anywhere, the Honda or Acura speaker adapters, so you can use the factory wiring to run your signal. If you're going to run wire into the door, you're going to be doing high power, 150 watts, 200 watts, anything above 100 watts. You can run your own wiring. The door has enough space in the cavity here for you to get this boot off and run it into the cabin. This boot is just has wires in it, so there's no connector there or anything. You can easily run wire. It is a little hard, obviously, to get the boot off, but if you needed to, you could run wire in the door. It's not a huge problem. In the newer TL, the connector is right here at the door panel, so you can't really run wire through it. In this car, you can run wire through the boot without any problem. I don't really see why, unless you're going to do a ton of power. If you wanted to install a tweeter, you could use this cell panel to install a tweeter. I don't think you need to run it into the cabin, but that is up to you. So guess who's the genius who stuck his camera in the door cavity and then the microphone didn't record audio anymore until they realized it was broken. So I'm just going to talk over this part. I'm just hooking up the speaker. So with our speaker harness, I'm able to just plug it into the door. No wire cutting, no wire splicing. And then our spacer gives us 4 mounting locations. You can screw more screws into it, but it has 4 holes that I'm lining up. And then I'm going to start screwing each screw by hand so that I don't damage my speaker. I put each screw in by hand first. After they are hand tight, I then come in with the drill and secure each screw to the spacer with the drill to make sure it's nice and tight. Now I'm checking to make sure that spacer isn't flexing, moving, or coming out of the door in any way. After that's all set, we're now just putting the door panel back. We're connecting the light. The light has a twisting mechanism, so you just need to slide it in and then twist it for it to lock. You then have one connector you need to connect for your window switch, and next you have the actual door panel sliding onto the door. In order to clear the door panel, you need to make sure that the locking mechanism comes through this hole. If it doesn't, then the door panel is never going to slide on. So that's the first thing you want to verify, is going through. Then you can work on the other side. And if your door panel has a lip that has to clear over the metal, once it does, you'll see it'll slide down into place. Then you can pull it a little bit further down. Just make sure that you get the connector for the locking mechanism up and out where you need it. And then we're going to now just put the door panel back. It takes one screw at the top, one screw at the bottom, just like the ones you took out, and then we're just putting our cover back on before moving to the next step. In the next step, we're going to be taking the back door panel off and cutting the door so that we can fit that bigger loudspeaker I showed you earlier. We're going to be now installing the loudspeaker with that big magnet. So in order to fit this in the door, we're going to have to use a spacer. We can't use our spacer because our spacer doesn't clear the magnet, but Metro makes a part, the 824300, which is a 1-inch universal speaker adapter bracket or spacer. And you can see that the speaker covers, the magnet clears this spacer with no problem. So now it's just about making sure that the magnet can clear the door. In order to do that, we're going to have to remove the door panel. To remove the door panel, it's just like the front. You have a little cover over this screw here. So you're just going to pop that cover off, get that screw out. Then you have a screw down here, right in that hole. You're just going to stick your screwdriver in there, get that screw out. Once those two screws are out, you're going to move this handle forward and release the clip. Just like the front door, it has the same locking mechanism for the door handle and the clip. Once you release that, you can start prying the door panel, and now you just need to come up and over the lock mechanism and release the metal that's grabbing on the door panel from it, and you should be able to pull the door panel towards you. Then you can disconnect everything, get ready to remove the speaker. The speaker, just like the front speaker, has 3 screws. You're just pulling all 3 screws off, and you're pulling that speaker off. Then we're getting ready to cut the door, so we want to see exactly where we have to cut. So we're putting our loudspeaker against the door so we can kind of trace out what we need to cut. As you can see, we have to cut a rather large amount of metal to get this to fit in there properly. So here I'm using the flush cutter. I'm starting my cutting. This cutting is really annoying with a flush cutter. You need a better tool to cut metal, but the blade that we are using is rated for metal, but it's just an annoying cut. You can see I'm pretty sweaty from trying to cut the door, but I eventually get it done, and then I have to use some bending to really make sure I make room for the magnet. So I'll show you exactly what the opening looks like here. You can see it's a little beat up, it's cut up, but this is what you end up having to need to do to fit such a large speaker in the door. And you can keep cutting away to fit 8s, whatever you want, but it's a lot of cutting, very annoying. Here you can see some of the metal that we actually removed, and there's the flush cutter. So if you're trying to install a bigger speaker like this, this is what you're going to have to do. And you can see that the mounting bracket now fits. So we'll screw the mounting bracket in. Then we're going to screw our speaker in. Right now we're just hooking it up. So we're still using our plug and play harness to just make the connection real easy. And then we're mounting the speaker into the door now. We just got to clear the terminals, and then we can secure it to the door. So this way you can get a large speaker in the door. It is tough to do so. You got to do that door cutting, but it fits in there snug, and it's going to hit a little bit of the door panel, so you'd have to trim the door panel plastic a bit because this is a 1-inch spacer, so it's going to sit a little further. We actually ended up removing that speaker and installing a Pioneer speaker because, again, that's not the right choice for this system. So we removed that, installed the Pioneer speaker. Now we're just going to put our door panel back. You just got to make sure that when you're putting the door panel back, you connect everything. All right, guys, now that we set that all up, we're going to move to the passenger, to the driver rear door, then the driver door, and then that's going to finish up our video. All right, so we have our Pioneer speaker already. These are the 4 screws we're going to use to mount it. This is our harness connector, so we can just plug it right in. We have our spacer ready to go, ready to install. So now we just got to pull the door panel off. Again, same 2 screws. You're just going to pop this cover off. Get this 1 screw out. Then we have another screw right down here. This screw doesn't like to come out, so you can grab it with a magnet, or you can just do what I do is once you start prying on the door panel, it just falls out. So there it goes. Almost forgot again. You're gonna slide this forward and then off, and then that'll allow you to disconnect this clip right here, which just slides off into the side. All right, guys, so the metal bar slides into here like this, and then this secures it over it like so, so it snaps into place. What you're doing is you're releasing this, and then you're able to pull up. And then the reason why you're sliding is to release these hooks. So once that's out, you can now lift up. So now we can lift our door panel up. If this happens to you, these tabs, I'll show you, once I disconnect, I'll show you how to get the tabs back on. So there's a clip here. You just push the little tab and pull it down. So this is the little tab I'm talking about. And then if this happens to you, so like this came out like here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna straighten these out. So you're gonna straighten them out some, line them up with the openings they have, and then you're just gonna start pushing them into their openings. See them start to go in by themselves. And then on the other side, you push them back into place so that they don't come loose. And then to remove our speaker, it's just the same 3 screws. Pull it out, wiggle the connector. Now it's disconnected. Now with the same 3 screws we just took out, we mount our adapter. So I'm just getting them started real quick. I want to show just about that much. All right, they're all the way down. You can see that bracket's really in there. Now we're just going to take our screws for our Pioneer speaker, plug our speaker in, and then use the 4 holes of the speaker to mount it. Alright guys, so our speaker's all screwed in, connected, and now we can put our door panel back. Alright guys, so we got our door panel back on, our speaker's all in, and now we're going to move up to the driver's side. Alright guys, even though this door panel has a lot more going on, it's the same thing. You're just going to pop that little cover off, and then you have a screw here and a screw up here. When pulling this door panel off, there are other connections you need to worry about. So there's about 3 or 4 connectors you need to watch out for. But the first things first, we're just going to slide this forward and get it out. This one has 2 connectors and a handle you need to worry about. So what I like to do first is take my tool and release the handle. So remember the clip we talked about before and the other ones? You want to release that clip first. And that frees me to bring this more out. Then I can disconnect this connector and then disconnect this connector. Now I can pry my door panel from the bottom. I like to start on this edge, just pry towards me, and then I can release it from there, slide it out a little, and then release it. So the extra connectors I was talking about, you have one up here, then you have a couple here that all have tabs that you need to push in and press down. So push down, another one here, another one here, and then here you might be tempted to go down there and disconnect, but there's actually a connector here you disconnect. So this one has a tab right here, and you pull that, disconnect it, and now you can release your door panel. So just like all the other speakers, guys, it's just 3 screws. Take my 3 screws out, disconnect my speaker. Then here you can see we have our bracket all ready to go. I'm just going to get our 3 started. Start that off. Let me go in this corner. Let me grab this corner. So now that I got all of them in some, I'm going to finish the top. And then I'm going to do this side. Okay, now that our adapter's in, we take our speaker, connect it, and then line up our holes. We just want to make sure that the metal of the speaker terminals does not touch the speaker cavity, otherwise you'll have a short and it'll end up with no sound. And that's it, guys. With our adapter and the spacer, it just makes installation that much easier. And now we just have to put our door panel back, make sure we hook up all our connections. The only thing that is easy to forget is these two, so make sure that when you put the door panel back, you put these in through the hole. Alright guys, so we put everything back, we're just putting our last screws. This installation can be rather fast as long as you're using the proper accessories. If you're going to be running wire or cutting the door like we had to, be prepared to spend an afternoon doing this. If you're going to use our accessories, then you can pretty much get this done in a matter of an hour or 2 hours, all the doors. It's rather simple to remove the door panel. You just have to be patient and careful, and then replacing the speakers, you saw it's just a matter of screwing and plugging things in. So if you're looking for any of the stuff you saw in video, visit AcuraAudioGarage.com. You can look at our different speaker sets, select them for your vehicle, and you'll get the speakers and all the correct accessories you need to install them. All right, YouTube, we're gonna be wrapping up this video. I just wanna summarize what we did. So we put all the speakers in there. You can see here are all the factory speakers that we pulled out. Here are the spacers we use. So these are the spacers you can find on AcuraAudioGarage.com. You can buy just the spacers with the harnesses and the necessary hardware, screws and inserts, or you can buy a complete speaker package. So these are available on our website. This is what we use for the front. These are what we use for the rears. These we just had laying around. We don't sell these. The reason why we went with cheaper ones for the rears, because usually your front speakers are what you listen to the most. Your rear speakers are kind of just rear fill. They're not given as much power in some configurations. Some people don't even run rear speakers, so you can always go with more expensive front speakers and cheaper rear speakers. To wrap the video up, I'm just gonna give you a demo what they all sound like. I know through YouTube it's kind of hard to listen, but hey, we'll give it a try. As always, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Make sure you stay subscribed. We have that subwoofer video coming on, then we have other videos prepared for the Acura. So if there's anything specific you want to see, make sure you leave it in the comments. Make sure you like the video, share it, subscribe, join the channel. Again, thanks for watching.